Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the HTC One A9. Its claim to fame is to look a whole lot like a certain phone from a certain company, and I'm trying to not say this brand once because I don't think it matters. It matters what this device knows to perform, how it feels and all the rest, and not if it looks like another phone. That's none of my business. So let's jump into the review right now. Okay, as always, let's start off with the design and build quality. Compare it here with a 5.2 incher. As you can see, it is a tiny little bit narrower, almost the same height, therefore a little bit thinner. But what is really important and what is really great in my opinion is the in-hand feel, because the device feels very thin, very compact, and with all those smooth curves like here and the smooth material and everything else, it just feels so nice and round and really great in the hand. One hand use was really okay, very not the best, because the device is still a little bit on the taller side, but in terms of design I absolutely love it. One thing that's maybe not that great is the material choice, because it feels super premium, it doesn't creak, and the overall build quality is top notch. But if you have dry or maybe cold hands, it can become very slippery. If you have slightly more normal moisty hands, then it's actually really grippy, but still keep that in mind, aluminum has this issue from time to time. Other than that, we have the dual tone flash. Here we have the camera on the top. I think this is to improve the reception. Here we have the SD card and SIM card tray, and micro USB at the bottom, one speaker, microphone, and the headphone jack. About the buttons, I still think this position, same as on the Z3, very close to each other, is one of the best possible positions. This feels super natural to me. Also, the volume rocker slightly above is really great, but a slight little thing to mention here. As you can see, we have this great texture, so it's easily possible to find it. This is great, but it's almost a little bit too easy to press, because I did it often by accident. It's still okay for me, not an issue, but it could have been a little bit more resistant to the touch, which is the case here for the volume rocker. That one has this resistance, almost too much, but it's totally fine. The only issue I have here is that you can maybe see it's almost flush and sometimes quite hard to find. But overall, I'm still totally fine with the buttons. The build quality is absolutely great. Feel in hand is great. The fingerprint reader, let's check that one. Let's turn the device on and see how long it takes. And as you can see, it's actually really fast. It's maybe not as fast as the very best ones out there, but I was totally fine, and I like the position. It's okay. It's a little bit quite on the low side and maybe hard not to let the device fall out of your hands, but I'm still totally fine with that. We have a notification LED, which I didn't really see much because it's quite faint and didn't always seem to turn on, but overall absolutely fine. Now let's check the display. About the display, I have to say one thing. 1080p AMOLED, but it's one of the maybe least well calibrated displays on the market. Why? The reason therefore is that colors are a little bit more on the dull side. It just doesn't really pop that much, and as you can see, all the colors seem a little bit more muted. The white is on the warmer side. Blacks are great since it's an AMOLED display. I would have just wished for a cooler white, since we don't have, unlike on the M9, a color temperature control, which is odd to see since HTC did already include that once and didn't choose to do that here. Viewing angles are absolutely fine, really stable. It would have been just the colors that I would have wished for a little bit more pop. And what else? The brightness. It's not the really brightest one out there. I've seen a lot AMOLED displays that were a lot brighter. Overall, you can get used to it if you use this device as your main device only. If you switch with different devices that are better calibrated, you will notice this, and it seems quite dull. Let's check the sound. Yeah, I don't want to drag this any further because I am quite disappointed, especially from an HTC device. They are known for boom sound, and I don't see anything of that. The maximum volume isn't where I want it to be. I would have at least wished for 10-15% more. The sound is on the more flat, weak side. It gets the job done in most cases, but it really wasn't a satisfying experience at all. Okay, but just about that. Though one thing is quite good, and that is the headphone jack audio quality, because really loud, we have boom sound. There are two settings which I would use the music for. Then the sound is really rich and nice and definitely enhanced. Absolutely fine here. So If the speaker would have been as good as the headphone jack, I would have been really satisfied, but especially from someone who invented boom sound, this is a little bit disappointing. Now let's get into the performance, and this is where I'm really happy, because if we check Chrome, then you will see the only thing that I'm not so happy is the speed of the device, because smoothness is top notch and can rival the very best ones out there. And I really mean the very best ones out there, the absolute flagships on the market without any issues. The only thing where I noticed the 617, like all the other 600 devices on the market, has a little bit of issues with the older rendering engine for the browser, because as you can see here, we see a little tiny bit of micro stutters. So it's not perfectly smooth. It's still absolutely usable, no issues, but it can't compete with the great performance of Chrome. So if you use the older browser a lot more than you use Chrome, you will notice this more, but all the other apps are absolutely great. As you can see here, this is so buttery smooth, and better than actually the 810 that I used on many devices, which is really odd. Maybe that's one of the more newer generation of 64-bit processors or SoCs from Qualcomm, and they did improve some things here, because I was super pleased. Okay, multitasking performance isn't really great, because you will notice especially taps to reload a whole lot. This is something that is a common theme. I wrote right now, don't have too much apps open. App loading times aren't the fastest one. App switching is okay, but you will live with a lot of reloads, and even apps like G Plus though run absolutely smooth. So if you don't need the fastest device but more enjoy a really smooth experience, then you will have a really great one here. And usually now I show off Riptide, but this time I decided to use Asphalt. Why? Because of one reason. Because out of the box, this device, for example, for Asphalt, started with the medium settings, but I think it's absolutely capable to go even for the high settings, because the gaming performance was really good, and even now I would say it is better than maybe the 808 or even in some cases the 810. So I am absolutely really happy with the performance here. If they would have given this device maybe 3 GB of RAM, that would have been the icing of the cake, because the multitasking would have been more powerful. Because like I said, super smooth, super nice. It's just loading times maybe aren't on a top-notch level, and the multitasking is a little bit limited. But therefore, yeah, and as I said, the browsing experience with the old browsing engine isn't the best. But as you can see here, the loading times aren't up to snuff. But look at this performance now. This is on high with a mid-range SoC, and I think it works absolutely playable at all times. I'm a little bit sorry that the loading times were a little bit long, but as you can see here, this, in my opinion, works out absolutely nice. No issues at all. I didn't really have any stutters. And maybe one of the best things here, I didn't notice any throttling. I ran in 2 for over half an hour, and the values jumped from 65 to 67,000 with a few odd ones like 60,000. But it didn't get warm at all. I didn't notice any throttling, and the device itself stayed really mildly warm, less than most others. So whatever Qualcomm did here with the 617, they should have done it better maybe already with the 810 or with the 808, because I really like this performance. Really nice. Now, battery life is something that I have to say. I didn't get the quick charge 3.0 charger, which this device already supports. For some reason, I just didn't get that. But with the quick charge 2.0, I needed 1 hour and 40, which is okay for a device that's with a small battery. But what about the battery life? Let's check that. And yeah, I didn't expect too much, and actually it's better than expected in some cases. But of course I would have wished for a better battery life, because this would have made this device even more so great than it is. Because as you can see here, 3 hours and 40 over the course of one day. And once again, here it was 3 hours and 30. This was with a mixed use. If you go Wi-Fi only, you can expect maybe even 4 hours. This is 3.5, and the 4 hours 2 times is on Wi-Fi only. So just from my use with 65% of brightness or 60%, 3.5 hours with mixed use, about 4 hours in Wi-Fi only use. But the one thing that I have to say, those didn't seem to work every time, because sometimes I had like 12 hours and then 7%, which is slightly more than 0.5% an hour. and sometimes I had way less. So those doesn't seem to kick in all the times, but if it does a great job. But maybe if the device settles in for a little bit longer, it's great. Now, what about the software? And here I have to say, wow, great job, because I never was the really big fan of Sense, but since Marshmallow, they did a great job. We have now a way more stock look than ever before. For some reason, I can't rearrange those, because usually on Marshmallow, on a Nexus device, you press, hold it longer, and you get the System UI tuner that allows you to rearrange. In this case, it doesn't seem to work. We also have lock screen shortcuts. Of course, you can only use them by dragging and then opening with the lock screen with the fingerprint reader. But this is great to see that we have this option. We have the minimal look. We have the theming engine, as you can see here, for the icons. I would have still wished for a little bit more customization, because mostly what it changes is the font and maybe the icons and so on. Not really that much more. We are running already 6.0, if I'm not wrong. 6.0. So all is good here. The device feels great. We have all the Marshmallow features. We have a few enhancements, but not really that much. We have the fingerprint scanner, some personalized options, but mostly it's actually really stock-like, and that should allow the device to have really fast updates. But so far, as for the software, this is the best balance as what I got from an HTC device from ever, because stock minimal look, no impact on the performance, a few little minor enhancements from from HTC, but therefore all the goodies from Marshmallow already. So what about the camera? Selfies look good. If you have the proper lighting, you can get really sharp shots. Sometimes with a bright background, it doesn't really always get the white balance correct, but it's totally fine. And it can be actually really sharp and nice. Low light capabilities were a little bit odd, because the picture was very dark, way darker than I ever saw it before. Therefore, still quite sharp and not even that grainy. So okay, but definitely not on the very best. Pictures though are really nice. They are very sharp. Of course, if you have sometimes a little bit of a smaller object and want to focus that, sometimes it didn't get it properly. Even with some manual focus, it didn't work out. But if really sharp, really nice saturation, really nice exposure, I was definitely surprised, and it's way better than it was on the M9. So totally fine in my book. Absolutely nice. Maybe not the very best camera, but definitely easily on par, if not better than most of the higher and mid-range phones, for sure. Now, what about the video qualities? I have to say, the slightly disappointing thing is that it doesn't autofocus while movement. So if you go from landscape to a macro shot, you need to wait for like a second after you have stopped moving that it can autofocus. Then it works okay. The exposure isn't maybe super smooth, the transition from bright to dark, but still okay. So in overall, the video qualities are okay, but can't quite match the qualities of the picture shooter. Now, let's get to the recap part. And here I have to say, actually, let's start with design and build quality. Absolutely love it. Super compact, which I like. Super round feel, great button placement. Everything just feels as it should. And I don't care if it looks like another phone, because as it looks, as it feels, that's great. The display is not disappointing. You can get used to it. After using it for a few days, it was always nice using it for the whole day. If I then switch to something with more bright colors, like right now I have the Huawei P8 Lite or the Sony Xperia Z3, you know these colors just look a little bit more dead to me, a little bit flat. I would have wished for here some color calibration control, because I'm pretty sure the display can do better, but the calibration is just a little bit off. One thing that's even a little bit more so disappointing is the sound, because the speaker's quite weak, just not loud enough. For a device that tall, a little bit more boom sound would have been nice. Therefore, the headphone jack quality is really great though. Performance, I really like it. I'm someone who uses the old browsing engine a little bit more, but even that one was convincing, not as good as some other devices, but therefore Chrome perfect. All the other apps super smooth. Smoother than some flagships on the market, even most of the flagships. Just multitasking, a little bit limited. Loading times not that fast. Battery life, I would say about average, definitely slightly below the better ones these days, because 3.5 hours in mixed use wasn't that great, and 4 hours on Wi-Fi is okay. Standby drain was nice, so overall it will get harder. Therefore you have Quick Charge 3.0. Software though, absolutely nice. I really like the implementation of Sense this time, because it's minimal, it's quite in the background, but still does all the good stuff in the background. And with fast updates, this should be a great device, so that is great. The camera, absolutely solid. absolutely fine. For pictures and for videos, still more than good enough. So what is my take on this device? I absolutely love it. And if they would have gone full force in a few things like better display, at least a better calibration, better sound, and better battery life, this could have been one of the best devices out on the market. It's still a great device, and for a price right now here at about $385, the value maybe isn't the best because it's not the well-rounded, most mature device. Therefore, it just would have needed a better display and the sound and so on. This seems like a little bit of a cop-out, like they went a little bit half-assed on this. Therefore, the performance is great, the build quality is great, the camera is really, really good. Nothing really to complain. Just a few things aren't quite up to snuff that I would have expected, because this is a quality that I see on quite lower devices. And for this price, you get devices that have a little bit of a more well-rounded package. But if you want a device that really feels great, feels premium, is a really stylish device, then this is definitely worth looking for if the price is right, because it still performs well. If you aren't someone who uses a lot the speaker, but therefore the headphones, you will enjoy the experience. And if you don't use too many phones at the same time, you will get to the display used to as well. Battery life is something that you have to know for yourself. But other than that, I think I covered all the pros and cons and the things middle in between. And otherwise, all I have to say is, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, then don't. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. And if you have any questions or anything further to say, leave that in the comments. And if you saw, I have a little bit of a dry mouth, and I think after all the talking, I need an apple. Bye.